Joining us today on the podcast, we've got renowned hockey trivia buff and historian, the one and only Liam Maguire. How are you doing today, sir?
Ryan, I'm great, buddy. I'm great. I'm hanging right in here, man. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing better than your beloved Habs are these days, because my goodness, what a roller coaster ride it's been since the Stanley Cup Finals for you guys.
Yeah. I mean, there's been teams that have won a cup and missed the playoffs the next year, including Montreal. In fact, they won the cup in '69 and missed the playoffs in 1970. So, and they're not the only one. Other teams have fallen off a cliff, but this is something a little different. This is really an epic death spiral that they've been on since the start of the preseason games. I could tell right away something was wrong, even in the meaningless contests, and that certainly bore out once the season started in earnest. And it's been, as we've all seen, just terrible ever since. So yeah, hell of a fall from grace, but largely paying the price for taking their fans. Me, not so much. I was around for the glory days, but I think of my son, who's 25 and never saw any of that. And I took him down to Montreal. Yeah, they didn't win that game against Tampa, but we were there that whole day, and that was an incredible experience.
Yeah. Well, like you said, right? You go from the mountaintop to currently second worst record in the league, only ahead of the gong show that is the Arizona Coyotes, who may or may not be locked out of their own arena. Like, who knows what's going on with that? But obviously they clear out the front office, so sweeping changes are already in effect here. Now, how much of that, though, really does Bergevin and some of the people who got removed from their position, how much do they really have to wear? Or is this just a case of, listen, you've got your all-world goaltender, Carey Price, who hasn't really even resumed hockey operations quite yet. Shea Weber may never play hockey again. They've had all sorts of other injuries going on. Like, was this something that when you looked at that roster before they even stepped foot on the ice, you thought, okay, there's going to be some trouble here and management didn't do enough to shore up some of their deficiencies? Or is this just a case of, hey, our best players aren't available for us to play? What do you want me to do as a GM?
I think it's a combination of both those things. I think that Marc Bergevin in 9.5 years, I think, did a good to a very good job. He had a couple trips to the semis, including obviously last year to the final, notwithstanding a 56-game season in a Canadian division. I mean, coming back against Toronto, that's their biggest series win in a non-cup winning year in Montreal Canadian history. To do it against a rival that they've been literally a rival of since 1917, even, well, from a franchise point of view, I would say Montreal and Toronto have been rivals going back before that even. But from a franchise point of view, right from the beginning of the NHL, and then beating Vegas after losing game 1 to win 4 out of the next 5, then you force the series to a 5th game and you lose it 1-0. So myself as a Habs fan was holding my head pretty high as the summer progressed, hearing the rumblings of some potential injuries and things of that nature. I thought, regardless, even give us the exact same roster to start this season, I still had Montreal pegged for a battle for a wild card berth in the Atlantic Division, in the Eastern Conference. So wild card, of course, encompasses both divisions. So I have them pegged in that 4 or 5 hole, all hands on deck. As the news came out about Shea, and then Paul Byron, and then Tatar was the first to go, then Corey Perry, then the Kotkaniemi, then, it just one after another. The final skate to fall was the news on Carey Price. I mean, that absolutely hit me like a ton of bricks. Hasek clearly did his teammates.
Yeah.
And now you've got a team that had 45% turnover from when they played game 5 against Tampa on Wednesday, July 7th. We're talking about 7 weeks later.
Yeah.
And they're on the ice trying to get ready for the season. They were in no way, shape, or form. And that has been highlighted by the play of so many of their players that have managed to stay in the lineup, although most haven't. I mean, Toffoli's out 8 weeks now. Edmondson hasn't even played. Petry's been a shell of himself. I've stated it publicly. I've talked about it privately. He should have been taken out of the lineup a month into the season. He's Carey Price's best friend. Their wives are best friend. Petrie went on Twitter the day after Carey Price's wife did and said how shocked and blown away he was. He said, our wives are friends. I drive to the rink with them every day. We had no idea. No idea. And man, I'll tell you, you just take this configuration of setbacks and there isn't anybody, least of all a Stanley Cup finalist, let alone a winner, that was going to be able to muster anything. The rest of what's gone on, some can be laid, I think, at the feet of Dominik Ducharme. I think he's lost the room. Anything that they do good on the ice, they have good stretches, good moments, good periods. They played a real solid game against Tampa 2 games ago and blew it in the last 120 seconds. But most of the games they play, the MO is the same. Down early, trailing after 1, can't catch up. Specialty teams, worst almost in history, automatic loss, and most of the crew are mailing it in. They've got half dozen guys up from Laval. Shouldn't he be in the NHL? And the rest is history, man. You're saying they're just ahead of Arizona. If you said to me right now, Montreal will be 32nd at the end of the season, I wouldn't bet against it. I mean, there isn't going to be any miracle turnaround here. There's some things now that have to happen going forward, some of which you just alluded to, the off-ice changes. Marc Bergevin was there 9.5 years. He was voted one of the top 3 GMs in the league on 4 out of those 9 seasons. He's 10th as a general manager in playoff wins in 9.5 years. He made 64 trades in 9.5 years. The overwhelming majority of them were fantastic, excellent trades, not including free agent signings like picking up Paul Byron on waivers, signing Tyler Toffoli as a free agent. I mean, tons of stuff that he did to demonstrate the guy's usefulness as a general manager. But that doesn't matter to the social media horde. It doesn't. And unfortunately, they know next to nothing and they just live in the moment. They don't know the sport. They're very emotional and their comments are as such. So, but myself, who follows the game closer than most, I give Mark a lot of credit. I would not say he did a fantastic job. They didn't win a cup. I mean, 14 teams went to the final in his tenure. He was one of them. 6 teams won a Stanley Cup in the 9 years. You know what? That means a whole hell of a lot of teams didn't, including Montreal, but they made a final. So, and I mean, one of those is a team with Ovechkin. Another one is a team with Sidney Crosby. That's 3 of the cups right there. Like, you know, Tampa back to back. There's 5-year cups right there. So, you know, it's hard for me to be overly critical, and I'm kind of just going to ride this storm out as a fan of the Habs. But that's all the tangible and intangible reasons as they are where they are. And there's no magic pill here. They'll get some bodies back. They'll win some meaningless games down the stretch. That's the way the Ottawa Senators do it every year. and Montreal will steal a page from Ottawa this year, and they'll win a bunch of games down the stretch, and they'll still finish 30th to 32nd. And then we'll see. What has to happen here is what is going on with Carey? Is he going to come back? Can he play? And if he does play, where's his head at?
Yeah.
I mean, literally and figuratively, where's his head at? And then we need closure on Shea Weber. I don't know what's going on with Joel Edmondson. The guy was a beast in the playoffs. Like that top 4D in the playoffs. Edmondson and Petrie, Sherratt and Weber. They played 25 to 28 minutes a night, and they were killers. They were life takers and heartbreakers back there. And you got 3 of them out of the lineup right now. I mean, yet idiots and morons on social media go, oh, the Habs. Oh, God, what's wrong with the Habs? You know, I had a guy last week asked me, geez, what's wrong with the Habs? I said, well, you're watching the games. Well, no, not really. Like, I'm just, you're not watching. You're not even watching. You know, it's just, that's the idiocy you got to deal with, idiocy you got to deal with out there. But that's the tangible and intangible reasons. You will not hear it any more succinctly as I just laid it out for you.
Well, there you go, right? Like anyone who questions, well, you know, is Liam sort of a fly-by-night fan or a passionate one? There's your answer right there, right? But want to circle back to something that you just mentioned, right? And that's our friend Dominik Ducharme. So by all intents and purposes, we can kind of write off this season as far as, unless there's a Andrew Hammond Hamburglar-esque run in their future coming together here. They're vying for a top overall pick when all is going to be said and done. So this year, do you see him riding out this season and Montreal sort of figuring, all right, there've been enough changes already. It's probably a lost year. We're cycling young kids through the lineup. Let's just have Dom ride out the year and then we'll make a change in the offseason? Or do you see any glimmer of hope or maybe roadmap that he's still the guy and can fix this long term?
No, I don't think he's the guy. I love the hiring of Jeff Gordon. I think it's a phenomenal hire. I thought his press conference was outstanding. And this is a guy in his short time in Boston, did great work. And then even better in New York, he was let go for a non-hockey reason. We all know that. And he's come in here with a hell of a job, man. I mean, it's probably one of the toughest jobs in sports. It would be in the top 5. It has to be globally to be in charge of and or coaching the Montreal Canadiens, and especially in light of that miracle run last year. So I having said all that, I was disappointed as hell when he said let Ducharme ride out the year. I mean, we've seen Craig Berube won a Stanley Cup with an interim coach title. Yeah. Like he replaced Mike Yeo right around Remembrance Day or a little after, and still couldn't buy a win to save his life until they basically gave up on Allen and started riding Binnington, and he was kicking out BBs, and they rolled that all the way to a Stanley Cup. And he was an interim coach. He was not named full coach. Rick Bowness went to a final just 2 years ago as an interim coach. He then got the head coaching job. I don't see what's wrong. I mean, do you need more proof than Vancouver right now? And you can't bring in more of a retread than Bruce Boudreau, and who's come in and has got 4 wins, and all of a sudden, if you can get Besser and Pettersson going, there's no reason why their record should be where it is, but they're not 4 in a row or going to be soon 5 or beyond, but neither is their record a real testament to where they should have been either. But Bruce Boudreau, new blood as a coach. Now, you don't see it all the time because Yo's gone into Philly. Now, they've won 2 in a row here now, but they lost their first 3 or 4 with him. I don't have a lot of faith in him as a coach, maybe you can tell. And I have less in Ducharme at this point. I think the guy, like so many, has a fantastic resume. These guys come out of junior or out of NCAA, and they've got World Junior experience, or they go to the American Hockey League, they go to Calder Cup finals, or they win there. They have incredible resumes. And then you get to the NHL level, and it's just, that's where the rubber hits the road, man. Mm-hmm. And I was really disappointed Gordon said we're going to ride him out for the year. Now I'm thinking that really means squad at the end of the day. Maybe if they lose 15 in a row or something, he'll go, okay, you know what? We'll just let Luke or somebody or Burroughs, who can speak French, somebody run the bench the rest of the way, just get the guy out, because it's actually having such a negative effect, and we don't want to do irreparable damage here. So, and I think it's the little things. Like, to me, Cole Caulfield, I would play him 90 seconds of every power play. 90 seconds. But I don't know who's addressing the mistakes. I'm not in the room, As a fan, I sit back and I watch, and I don't see any passion on the bench. I don't see any fire. And I know Luke personally, and it's got to be eating him up inside. But I don't see any passion there. Like, you cannot go down 1-0 90 seconds into every game. I would snap 15 sticks in that room before the next game. I would go to every single guy to their face and say, if there's one thing we're doing tonight, is we're not getting scored on in the first 2 minutes. In the first 3 or 4 minutes, every single one of you is going to have a shift on the ice, fourth liners included. Your job is to not get scored on, and we're going to start there. We're going to build from that. Not tonight, not on our watch tonight. Who's saying that? They start every game and they're down 1-0 90 seconds in. That first goal there the other night in St. Louis, I could have gone right through the screen and strangled every one of them. I mean, it's just unfreaking believable. Unfreaking believable. These guys are being paid so well, and I know they're so fragile right now. That's where coaching has the ability to make a difference, even in games you're going to lose. make a difference as a coach. And that's where I think Ducharme, and sadly to a lesser degree, his assistants are failing. But at the end of the day, man, anytime anybody's ever been a subordinate in any walk of life, it's very difficult to impact or impart your philosophy on somebody who actually is in charge ahead of you. That holds true never more so than in pro sports.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ducharme, I would have let, and I don't have nothing against the man personally. I hope he gets another shot and somewhere, but he should be gone. I'm disappointed Gordon said keep him for the season, but I think there's probably a New York Ranger type message coming in Montreal's future to the fan base. And I think that's like going to steal a page from Brendan Shanahan and Mike Babcock in Toronto, where they said it is going to be painful. It is going to be painful. And that landed to Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. How's that working? You know, I mean, are they a cup threat? Probably not. But I mean, the fact is that this is the best Leaf team I've seen in the Austin Matthews era. And they sucked to get him. And Montreal has had a couple of third overall picks. Their drafting hasn't been satisfactory in the first round. It's been good overall through the drafts, but not good enough in the first round. Trevor Timmins has been let go. You alluded to it. And now Bergevin, and Trevor was there 19 years. Again, personal friend. Whether he ends up at a gig somewhere else, if he wants to scout, he can get a job for life. Yeah. I don't know if he'll ascend to the position he was at again or not. I don't know. But right now, to me, the coaching staff of the Montreal Canadiens, I would grade. What's a grade below F? Because that's what I would give them right now.
Yeah, I think it's just redo. It's just redo at that point.
I would absolutely be losing it. And I know you can't do that every game, but there needs to be a message. I watch 20 games a week. I see the effort from 3/4 of the league on every single night. And look, if you got 3 and 4, or you're playing 5 and 7, or you've just flown across the country, I get that. I get that more than 99% of all hockey fans. But what I'm seeing, I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing guys that are mailing it in. Seeing guys that are so fragile, guys actually that are showing a little bit of not caring. And you just cannot have that. I mean, you just can't have that. The California Golden Seals went out on their shield every single solitary night. Why? Because Carol Vadnais was their captain. And Carol Vadnais led the NHL in fighting majors one year because he took no prisoners and he expected that from his teammates. Are they one of the sorry-ass teams in NHL history? Absolutely. You go back and watch them play minute 55 to 59 before that buzzer went, and they were given it. They just didn't have the talent. There was no lack of effort because their captain wouldn't allow it. Yeah. Now, Montreal's lost Shea Weber, and that hole is so much bigger than just a quality D-man. They got nobody. Now you got Gallagher out of the lineup. They had nobody in that room to take over. I would go to Ben Sherratt. He's my guy. Like right now, today, as you and I are talking, and I would start with him or I would finish with him in that room in front of everybody. And I say, you're leading us tonight. Not on our watch tonight are we giving up that first goal in the first 2 minutes. And when we went through the first 2 minutes, I'd almost be ready to call a timeout and say, see, you can do it, you know? No, Jesus, let's go. Play with some friggin' pride. Lose a game, but go out on your shield, for God's sake.
Yeah. Well, lots to unpack there. One of the things, obviously, you mentioned Bruce Boudreau, who, again, he's been around the NHL. He's certainly not a new name to the coaching ranks at this point. Montreal, if you look, I mean, there's lots of factors at play here. I get that the Montreal Canadiens are more so an institution than maybe even Catholicism in Quebec right there. So the desire to always have that French-speaking head coach is going to be at the forefront of a lot of their hiring decisions. That being said, though, you look at who they've gone through lately, there seems to be that cyclical pattern of, Therrien, Julien, Vigneault. Vigneault's now without a job. Like, are you at all worried that it's just going to be another same message coming in there? And maybe it is Alain, or maybe even, who knows, a dark horse Patrick Roy actively campaigning for that job, whether he's the right fit or not. That's a whole other show segment right there. But like, are you at all concerned that they're just finding themselves stuck in this hiring pattern because they want to put that language concern first and foremost ahead of who is the right person to steer this, whatever you want to call it, retool, rebuild, wherever they find themselves in now?
Right. Well, Patrick was campaigning for the general manager job, and man, you won't find many bigger fans of him than me. I think he's the greatest goalie in NHL history. It's a 1 and a 1A with him and Hasek, whoever you prefer. If somebody wants to argue vehemently to me, it's Dominik Hasek. No problem. You got it. I'll take Patrick number 2. For me, he's number 1. And I mean, his record speaks for itself. So that said, his tenure in Colorado, the reasons as to why it blew up are all well documented. And I don't think this is a guy that plays well with others. And if he wanted to coach, I would take him as a coach yesterday, but he doesn't want to coach. I think him as a coach is exactly what we need. I'm concerned in the short term because the team is so beat up right now. I'd almost want him to come in once they've got the base building block and they've hit that rock bottom, which will be at the end of this season, whatever it's going to be. Because they need closure on Carey and they need closure on Weber. Those are 2 massive pieces that there has to be some closure of. And if Shea's done and he's going to tell everybody he's just going to play it out like Marian Hossa did, collect his money on long-term IR, Chris Pronger, all the rest, and never played another shift, but they never effectively retired, but everybody knew they were done. Mm-hmm. Like, we need that with Shea because it hasn't been fully announced. So I'm sorry, I'm digressing. So back to your question. Look, the Canadians play in the province of Quebec, and the number 1 language in the province of Quebec is French. And the owner is a French Canadian, and they play in the city of Montreal, which is a French city, and your fan base is French, your sponsors are French, and the majority of your media are French. You need the people in charge to be able to speak the language. You could take somebody called Billy Joe Bob right from the most English part of the world, which is probably somewhere outside of North Gore here in the Ottawa area. And if he took a Berlitz course and could speak French, he could probably coach the Montreal Canadiens if he was capable. The bottom line is the guy has to speak French. Now, what they've said definitively for the general manager is that it will be a francophone. Mm-hmm. So it isn't just a French Canadian speaking guy. This is someone we want who is born and raised, who knows the culture. And I found that very interesting. Here's Jeff Gorton, who probably wouldn't know Gilles Vigneault if he tripped over him. And he's making a definitive statement about the importance of having a francophone as a general manager. And it's interesting that the name that's risen to the forefront is player agent Kent Hughes. You couldn't have a more English name. You couldn't get a more French Canadian guy. He's just got an English name, but he's 100% francophone. And I really believe in my heart he's going to get the gig. Mm-hmm. I really believe in my heart. He's got a history with Jeff Gorton. He is the trend. Do you know something? There's currently 30 general managers in the NHL, right? Montreal and Vancouver don't have one. Of the 30 that are in the NHL, only 15 played in the NHL. Mm-hmm. 15 did not. That's 50% that did not. You know who didn't? The general manager of the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions. Mm-hmm. Neither did their coach, who was the next coach if we do go to the Olympics. There is no more old school, hardcore hockey guy than me. I'm telling you right now that you have to understand what you need in today's game. And that also means embracing analytics. It doesn't mean they drive the show, but you have to have a department that's got a wedge in the door to show. And I can't explain it all to you. I'm not a big analytics guy, but if I was in charge, I would never not have a full analytics department. I would meet with those guys every morning after every single game from the night before. Give me the pros, give me the cons. Because here's the games I watched. I would have my notes. Here's what I saw. Let's match it up. Okay, well, this is where your analytics number are wrong, and here's why. Okay, that's interesting to see that these numbers are showing that. Let me do a deeper dive into this guy's performance now on the ice. Did I make note of when he was on the start of his shift, the end of his shift, offensive zone faceoff, defensive zone faceoff, all these little things. So the Montreal Canadiens have to have a French Canadian general manager, and they have to have a coach who speaks French. And that's just the reality of it. And does it shrink the talent pool? Absolutely. Who's going to sit here and say no? But, I had a little back and forth with PJ Stock on that on Twitter. PJ Stock's a native Montrealer, played in the NHL. He's tough as nails. French, he can speak. He's fluently bilingual. And he was hammering the Habs for having to go the French route. And I said, hey, man, buddy, you should know above all why. I mean, that's just the reality of it, Ryan. It's just reality, buddy. They have to have it.
Yeah, and that's a good point as well there too, right? Is you've got Gorton already in place. Some have even floated the idea out there of, is he really going to be pulling the strings behind the scene, and they'll put someone who is maybe a francophone in that titular GM role, and they sort of are being that face to the media, whereas everyone behind the scenes knows who's calling the shots? Like, do you put any stock into that? Or do you think that, especially with some of the names you floated out there, you already mentioned Kent, he might be, again, those player agents, he handles sort of the contract negotiations aspects of it, deals with the media, and it's Gorton making a lot of the long-term, whatever, trades or scouting decisions? Like, do you think that whoever gets that GM role is actually going to be fully fledged, 100% in control, or is there some give and take shadow puppetry going on?
No, I agree with you. If that's what you're suggesting, I think that's the case. If it is somebody like Hughes in particular, let alone if they go, I mean, the names that came out originally, Matthew Darche and Daniel Briere, I believe, are both working in hockey ops positions in lower ranks, lower rungs. And if any of them, or Kent or somebody of that ilk, comes in, I believe wholeheartedly Jeff Gorton is going to, the buck will be stopping with him. Mm-hmm. And it'll be that way probably indefinitely. It was interesting on his hire. He was not hired and announced as the new president of the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, the title is a direct reflection of hockey ops and hockey operations. So I think his fingerprints are going to be all over this roster in the next 12 months going forward. And I believe they'll have a significant bounce back. Can't really be a whole lot worse. I mean, they haven't hit rock bottom yet because they're just going to keep losing. And until they get some closure and stuff. And now so many guys, you know what it's like, man. They're not, I mean, if your team's winning 8 or 10 or 12 in a row, you're staying in no matter what injury you got. You don't want to miss that ride. Yeah. And you're losing everything, and you got a little blister. You're finding an occasion to hit the infirmary, And look, I think Toffoli's legit. He's out 8 weeks, and Brendan Gallagher, COVID, whatever, right? I mean, there's key guys. Petrie now is legit hurt, whereas before I really believe I was suggesting he take time off and just cite mental duress, cite whatever, just get the hell off the ice. He was responsible for and against 2 to 3 goals a game. Jeff Petrie. This guy was in the Norris conversation halfway through last year, and he couldn't carry a pail of water, let alone a puck up the ice this year. So it is an unbelievable fall here. But I think Gorton is the man, and whomever comes in is reporting to him. Regardless, he said that's not what he said, at the presser. Yeah. He said, no, whoever I hire is going to be calling the shots. Yeah. Pull this one and it plays jingle bells. Yeah. Like, there isn't anybody who's believing that. And you know what? It doesn't matter. It's got no bearing on how you and I are going to conduct the rest of our day. So I believe Jeff Gorton is calling all hockey ops shots for the foreseeable future, but he will hire a general manager sooner rather than later, probably before the end of January. And I'm very interested to see who it'll be. I think he'll go Hughes. Maybe he won't. Yeah. But whoever it is will be reporting to him. And whoever it is will be a francophone. That for sure we know. Yeah.